Thank you.
Chris, you have a hard copy of the agenda there?
I do. Yes, I do.
You spoiled me.
I did. I still do. I knew it was in there
Thank you.
somewhere, Scott.
Okay. Want to do the call to order? Done that. Recording notice?
Recording notice. This meeting is being recorded and broadcast on the Town of Barnstable's Government Access Channel. In accordance with Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 20, the chair must inquire whether anyone else is recording this meeting, and if so, to please make their presence known. Is anyone else recording this meeting? Lovely, Scott, no one else is recording.
Okay, let's do the roll call.
A roll call. Scott Horsley.
I am here.
Brian Hughes. Sorry. Tom Cambereri.
Here.
Councillor Clark.
Here.
Z. Crocker.
Yes, I'm here.
Councillor Neary. Rob O'Leary. Louise O'Neill.
She's coming in.
Butch Roberts.
Here.
Glenn Snell. Councillor Starr. All right, as noted, we do not currently have quorum, so we cannot approve the minutes. We can't do the next meeting and all that. But we
I think
know that
there's a
some
couple
people are
more
coming in,
parking lot.
yeah.
Cannot do the next meeting either?
We could, I don't think it's an official decision.
Yeah.
So we don't
So,
forget to
alright.
get that done. I suspect at least one person's on their way from the DPW, right? I bet you somebody's driving from your office who thought the office
No, I
meeting
don't-
might be.
Here we go, here comes a quorum.
Oh, there we go. Wow, now we got everybody.
There we go, all right. Louise, you're now
Rolling it.
here.
No, fine, here.
Okay.
Take the chair seat.
Starry down here.
Running
Now,
this way.
I was videotaping before we started on time.
All right. I'll leave
So
you
we
all-
do now have quorum if
Yes.
you would like to do the minutes.
We'll go back and do the minutes. Anybody like a motion on the October minutes?
I'll move.
Okay, second? A second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
And let's go is it amendment to the September minutes? I don't remember.
This is the Tom Cambereri's.
Oh, yes, that's right,
requested
that's right,
minutes.
yes.
I had a few clarifications, they look to
Yeah.
be good to me, and so if everybody else has read them, I'll make a motion to approve them.
They are on the screen right now.
You should have sat here.
The first one is just updating to the correct date.
Tom seems to agree with you on a lot of things.
Yes, of course.
There's only so many ways I can
Except
write
the
out
date.
minutes.
I think you should second this.
The lots didn't get bigger. The
What's that?
houses-
Say again?
The houses got bigger? Did the lots get bigger?
Yes, no, the lots did not get bigger, but the homes did. Good catch there.
Okay, good catch.
Yeah, whenever you got that one.
Yeah, the lots didn't get much bigger.
Some
But
about
the houses sure did.
Actually, some got smaller.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is the next one.
Yeah, that just read as if I was in favor of penalizing people with cesspools. I wasn't. You know, they need to upgrade where they are in sensitive areas for sure, but not to be penalized just because they have one. So that's what that was about. And that was, there was just 25% in there without any attribute, so that's the revenue from septic pumping. It is,
Just didn't see that.
will change.
Second line up, the one that's underlined.
And once, should be once.
Oh, yeah, duh. Thank you. Geez, I'm normally really good at that.
Okay, so you're gonna amend your motion?
I'll amend my motion for the amendments, taken here today, to approve the minutes.
Okay, is there a second?
Oh, second.
Okay, seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Great, thanks, Tom, for going through that in detail. Appreciate that, maybe we get it right. Okay, next meeting date, And I guess before we do that, Chris or Gordon, where are we at with the town council presentation? Because it was December 11th, I think, right? And I'm happy to put that off, but I just want to coordinate our next meeting with that if we're going to be
Do you
postponing.
prefer it put off?
Excuse me?
Do you prefer it to be put
Well,
off?
I don't know, we have a lot to talk about tonight. Doubtful we're gonna get another meeting in between now and then. So kind of feeling like maybe a good idea.
January,
How's your onboarding of new council?
very well, yep.
Yeah,
Excellent.
okay,
Good.
You got a lot of work to do.
okay,
Give them a binder of things to read.
There was a good orientation that neither Gordon and I came in on the same year in 2019 that we didn't have. So it's just a
Okay.
good overview of the town structure and the relationship between councilors and staff.
well, I guess I'm just thinking in that, I know I've got we're gonna talk about my draft report today, and I've already got edits from several of you, and I'm suspecting I'm gonna get more. So given that, I wouldn't mind postponing the presentation to the council into January, if you think that's acceptable for the council, which would give us a little more time. Rob, you see any problem with that? Okay,
I think there's some reluctance to having a heavy lift in the coming closer to Christmas.
reluctance what, sorry?
Reluctance for a heavy
So
lift,
better to
of
push it out, is the point.
a fat
Oh,
agenda before
Good,
Christmas.
all right, that's, okay, good.
And they
So-
tend to
Okay,
bulk up between when they're drafted and they're finished.
all right, then, having heard that, I'll assume this, we won't be presenting in December, therefore, let's talk about a meeting day for us in December. It's gonna get tricky, but let's try it.
So, on first glance, oh, they took up all my space. Hang on. Oh nope, they're still free. December 16th, 6 p.m. It's a Tuesday.
It's good with me.
Yeah, in Selectmen.
That worked for me.
Anybody? Hey, I'm gonna go get a lotto ticket. That never happens.
Fine with me.
Okay, good.
6 p.m.
Yeah. 6 p.m. Selectmen.
invite, Chris?
All right, excellent.
And then we're gonna try to do a January with town council, is that what
I
you're saying?
think so, but I guess, how does it work, Gordon or Chris, how to get on their agenda, how do we do that, or your agenda?
Dr. Chris.
Chris?
Well, it's just vice president or
Ooh,
whatever.
we
you
have
know,
a-
she's Dr. Craig.
I'll talk to the council president
Okay,
and we'll make a request.
okay, well, why don't we shoot for that? You can-
For January?
And then the December, I may have a conflict with the water for the 16th.
Oh, yeah, you're on at 5 o'clock.
Yes, and we may be in here, I'm not sure if we're in here or if it's Zoom.
So I don't see this room booked.
Okay.
So
it's
it
probably Zoom.
could be
Invitation.
room public,
Yeah,
room
it's got
public.
everything.
I see it as Zoom.
Okay.
Waterways Committee meeting
one
is
I've
on
seen
Zoom.
is-
No,
The
Barnstable Water.
Water
Uh,
supply.
Oh,
No, Chris is
At
doing that.
5.
Or is it just-
still on Zoom.
That's Zoom too.
Okay,
So you could actually attend your Zoom meeting here.
oh, could
Or
I?
walk in.
And then just walk
Yeah,
in?
bring your laptop in.
Perfect.
Or have your Zoom meeting in this room.
Yeah.
You know, right? You're
I
portable.
think that's not Chris's invitation, that's.
So what are we suggesting as a time for this meeting then? Still 6 o'clock?
How long does your meeting go, Louise?
It's usually about an hour, but now we're doing rates and
Do you wanna do
financials
6:30?
and stuff. It's 6:30 would probably work, I mean, it would
6:30?
work better for me.
I mean,
That's fine with me, everybody, 6:30, good. So 6:30 on the 16th?
Here.
Excellent, thank you. All right,
Thank you.
Mr. Santos, you have an update for us on community septic?
Actually, can we move that to
Sure.
just a little bit later? I asked Kelly to prepare a little briefing,
Sure.
so.
That's fine, no problem. All right, well, let's, Amber,
You had a personal matter come up.
I do have her notes down.
okay.
So Scott, you wanna be Do you want a
Did you go
request
over it
to
with her?
No.
before the council in January?
Yeah, time you gave them
Yeah.
as I was
Yeah.
heading out the door.
So that first week of December, the council will have to vote to adopt the 2026 schedule. There's a draft around, but it hasn't been firmed up.
So, yeah.
People make requests to move around school vacation or other, not personal reasons, but for
You'll
other.
take that up at the December meeting.
Yeah, so it's not firm, but we have
And
first
it's
and third,
always on a.
First and third.
So, sorry?
first and third Thursdays of the month.
Oh, it is Thursday.
January 1st.
Thursday evening,
That's New Year's.
first and third.
Well, that- Thank you.
Chris, can I talk to you offline on this?
Sure.
We need to,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, let's talk, because I might have a couple conflicts there. Okay. Let's see, so we're gonna hold off on item number 3. And Amber, I guess that goes to you, if you're ready. A presentation on treatment technologies used in ponds.
As ready as I'll ever be. So yeah, you guys requested, I think at the last meeting, to have a little overview of various pond and lake management technologies. So I've basically prepared a slide deck that touches on a whole bunch, not all of them. I figured similar to the last presentation I gave on non-traditional nitrogen technologies, we just have discussion as we go. So feel free to jump in if you have questions. So in general, there are 4 types of pond treatment technologies, and they fall under these main categories: biological controls, chemical, physical controls, and watershed phosphorus loading controls. So biological controls in general address water quality impairments by altering the composition or relationships between plants and animals in the pond, typically shifting nutrients to other organisms. So some examples of this are enhanced grazing, which is a manipulation of the food web to reduce algae levels, or freshwater aquaculture, which is reintroduction or enhancement of native freshwater mussel populations to help filter algae populations in the pond, thereby clarifying the water. Both of these controls are considered to have limited effectiveness, have not been permitted on Cape Cod or implemented on Cape Cod. So currently they're not really ones that we understand well within ponds, but they're out there, outside of Massachusetts. Some places have attempted things like this.
Are freshwater mussels endangered though?
Well, not all of them, but there are several species of endangered freshwater mussels, which in part is what makes it a permitting challenge. The other challenge is, how do you properly source mussels to ensure that you aren't somehow introducing an invasive mussel, right?
Okay.
Like, we don't want zebra mussels in our ponds.
Filters out a lot of stuff.
They do, yeah, they
Even walking across the pond
cleaned
when
up
you're
some
done.
of the other ponds, but also become a difficulty for docks, boats, intakes, motors.
Yeah, everything.
Yeah, the list goes on. Yeah, so then we have chemical controls. These address water quality impairments by the addition of chemicals that alter water conditions to control algae, plants, and nutrients. Some examples of this are algicides. I've included barley straw on this slide because, well, as we go into it a little more, barley straw sort of acts like an algicide in the way that it breaks down. And we'll talk about that a little more. We also have phosphorus inactivation and selective nutrient addition. The last one I don't go into much, but the general overview of this is that you manipulate the phytoplankton community by adjusting the nutrient ratio. So that's usually the nitrogen to phosphorus ratio determines what phytoplankton are dominant in a pond. Some experiments have added, like straight up added fertilizers to change that ratio, thereby changing the community that's within the pond. Probably not recommended. We generally are trying to control nutrient additions, not bring more to the ponds. So generally, algicides, they kill cyanobacteria and algae. They inhibit cyanobacteria growth. They are found to be good at those things. They are short-term control of cyanobacteria, so in order to continue managing your cyanobacteria levels, you're going to have to perform some kind of routine monitoring and maintenance to ensure levels don't, exceed public health advisories. They don't address the nutrient inputs into the pond, so it's really just a Band-Aid short-term fix. They require permits, which sometimes include use restrictions for swimming, fishing, irrigation, and agriculture. That's not always true. It just depends on what the concentrations might be with the algicide, in the particular algicide that you might be using. We actually see use restrictions more commonly with herbicide treatments, so just something to note. Algicides might cause lysis, which is like death of cyanobacteria cells, which can release the toxins contained within those cyanobacteria. So that's a risk of applying algicides, because in the short term of like making the application to the pond and possibly those cells lysing, you could have a short-term increase in your cyanotoxin levels in the pond, which, if not monitored, could be overlooked if people are going to continue using the water right after an algicide treatment. Decaying algae also has the potential to increase oxygen demand in the water. So depending on how much algae you've controlled with that algicide, you might cause oxygen levels to deplete, which can in turn sometimes release phosphorus from sediments. Potential side effect. And also there are several types of algicides. So we have copper-based algicides, which are typically the most commonly used, but copper can accumulate in pond sediments, and it's not really clear how they bioaccumulate within the aquatic organisms that live within the pond, and whether that eventually transmits to humans through fish. There are also hydrogen peroxide treatments, which are more expensive than the copper-based, but a lot of people have been attracted to those lately because the byproduct of a hydrogen peroxide algicide is essentially water and oxygen. And so it's believed to be more environmentally friendly. And then the third I've listed as barley straw. And the next slide, 2 slides from now, I'll get into that a little more. But I will note it's not currently permitted in Massachusetts for algicide treatments. A little nuance there, but we'll talk about that more in a minute.
Amber, do you know which one of those they use in places that have harmful algae blooms in drinking water supplies?
Yeah, actually, so my next slide covers an example of that. So there are a couple Cape Cod examples for algicide usage. One is Pereira Pond in Yarmouthport. This is a half-acre pond. It's privately owned. They were permitted to use copper algicide in this pond in 2022. The report recommended that they follow up with additional treatments in 2023 in order to continue to control the nuisance algae. It did require 2 treatment doses over July and August in order to control the algae within that pond. Then we have Long Pond in Falmouth, which is actually the Cape Cod's only public drinking water reservoir. So all the other towns get their water from underground or in the ground. This is a surface water body that services, I think, roughly 80% of Falmouth. And in 2010, they used a copper algicide in order to control algae in that reservoir. Looking into it a little further, I found out that they were having some issues with bacteria, organics, particulates, algae coming into their system, causing taste and odor issues within the distribution system. So they upgraded their treatment facility in 2017 to dissolved air flotation, clarification, followed by filtration to remove those pollutants, improving their water quality. And also a long-term solution to managing the problem that they had with their water versus annual algicide treatments. Does that answer your question?
Well, I was just wondering how long do you have to wait? I mean, it doesn't sound like any of those, the copper is a good one to treat.
Well, it's pretty effective. Like once you add the algicide, it's going to manage the cyanobacteria. The question is, how many weeks does it take for the cyanobacteria population to come back?
And how soon is the water safe to drink?
There are rules on that. So they're required to follow the state's requirements in regards to copper algicide usage in drinking water reservoirs, and there's a whole document on it. I haven't read the whole thing, but there are rules associated with it, so I'm sure they had to have some follow-up monitoring. But generally, that's one downside of an algicide is, yes, it's going, like, you want, typically they prescribe early intervention, so you want to apply your algicide before you have a problem. So sometimes you might be applying algicide like without a need, because cyanobacteria levels, like for instance in your pond, don't always trigger an issue. But nonetheless, if you're going to remain on top of it with algicide treatments, you'd have an early application and then usually follow that at least monthly to ensure no cyanobacteria blooms over a summer. So it tends to just fall into a routine maintenance type solution.
In the Yarmouth Port situation, who does that? Does the homeowner do it?
They hired a lake management company to come out and complete the treatment because.
Is that required typically, or
Yeah.
can you just do this in your backyard?
You are not allowed to just do it. You have to be a certified applicator,
Okay.
and your applicator has to get a license from the state to apply the algicide.
Okay, all right.
So they actually they noted a delay in receiving their permit, which I'm not sure if that was a permit from local conservation commission or a permit associated with the algicide license from the state.
And you say this should be done before there's a problem. So how do you get a permit when there's not a problem?
Well, you've probably documented the problem in previous years,
Oh,
and now
okay.
you're going to your local conservation commission saying, this is the solution I want.
Okay, in
To
subsequent
implement.
years, huh?
Yeah, and when it's a private pond, it's probably a little bit easier because you are the sole owner.
Right.
Thinking about the O'Leary Pond on your estate over there?
Yeah. The guy's last name was Pereira, so it was named after him.
Yeah.
We know him.
Okay, I don't.
So with the algicides though, are there second order effects, like anything with a side at the back end of it means it's gonna kill something? Does it cause harm? I mean, is it known it only causes harm to algae and that's it?
Well, it's likely going to affect other phytoplankton and zooplankton populations within the pond. But again, it depends on the type of algicide you're using, because a lot of the hydrogen peroxide-based algicide companies say that their products only impact cyanobacteria and don't affect the good zooplankton populations or phytoplankton populations in the pond. But then they'll also caveat their products saying that there are some species of cyanobacteria that are just very adaptive and may not respond as well to the algicide treatment. So there's always a catch-all kind of in their sales pitches, but like generally, I mean, these products get used and people use them for some period of time.
Did either of those work? Does Yarmouth and Falmouth have results?
Depends on how you quantify work, right? Like, I mean, in Long Pond for Falmouth, I didn't see evidence that they had done this multiple years in a row. I got this information starting with the Cape Cod Commission's pond treatment technology mapper, where they basically documented anyone who submitted information on pond treatments. Well, this one was submitted. Whether or not they had follow-up treatments in 2011, 12, 13, I don't know. So I don't have the full picture there. And then again, with the Pereira Pond, it was recommended to continue treatments in the following year to manage the algae. Was it working? It probably was working, but that depends on if you want to have an annual algicide treatment program.
What was the objective? Besides killing the algae, was it aesthetic or was it recreational?
I didn't look into the permits. Usually they identify that as part of the permit, right? Because aesthetics are one of the interests of the Wetlands Protection Act. So
Yeah, and the homeowner.
yeah, right.
So yeah, I just don't know whether he's going swimming in it and thought he better get rid of it
I'm not sure.
or not.
Didn't talk to him.
Yeah. I don't know, it's kind of a weird one, the only pond being treated like that on the Cape.
That
Hope it doesn't catch.
that was documented. Again, this
Yeah.
was noted by the Cape Cod Commission's Freshwater Initiative. So I think where they could get information, they incorporated it. So barley straw, right? So the reason why barley straw is included under algicide is because as the barley, from what I've read, as the barley straw decomposes, it produces hydrogen peroxide, which, as we just learned, is a type of algicide used to control cyanobacteria. Others have suggested that this is what works for controlling cyanobacteria as well. So that's why I listed it under chemical control and algicides. Although it has the ability to suppress cyanobacteria growth, it also seems like maybe it shifts the algal dominance in the pond from cyanobacteria to a green or filamentous algae. It may also release phosphorus from the sediments because ultimately the barley decays, which consumes oxygen. Again, if it consumes enough oxygen, it may cause sediment phosphorus release in low oxygen conditions. So it's just a side effect of using this product. And again, not currently permittable in Massachusetts as an algicide. So now the next thing is there is an example of this being used in Massachusetts, and they received a permit from the Conservation Commission. How did they do that? Right, so from what I can tell, this pond in East Hampton that I can't pronounce, they essentially, the community got together, and I mean there was a leader of the group who went and got the permit from the Conservation Commission and basically said the community is going to fill bags with barley straw and deploy those bags in the pond and then remove them annually each year. In order to control cyanobacteria levels in this pond. Now, they were able to receive a permit from the Conservation Commission. What they aren't getting is an algicide permit from the state, right? So if you wanted to hire, like for instance, Pear Pond hired a licensed algicide applicator to treat the pond, that's not really possible here because those applicators would then be suggesting that barley straw is an algicide, which they're not allowed to do because it's not permitted as an algicide. So, taken on as a community project, it seems like they were able to do this. They did report that they did not have cyanobacteria blooms in 2023 or 2024. However, the pictures they also posted suggest that there's still plenty of other types of algae, like maybe it's duckweed that's still common on the pond. So again, this is, a type of technology that has been used in the state. Yeah.
I have a old memory cell that on Indian Trail where I live, and where there's a little pond behind a house, that the Cape Cod Commission did a barley straw effort. And it went on for years. And I think it had some success. So I'm confused by this, but so if someone owns a pond, can they just put a bale of barley in their pond and just, do they need a state permit for that?
Conservation, probably.
Yeah, so it's a wetland, right? So if you're gonna do something like, is that filling of a wetland? I don't know, but you might at least want to get a request for determination of applicability from your local conservation commission in order to apply barley straw to
there is a Massachusetts pesticide board that certifies applicators, but my guess is this is not considered a pesticide.
Yeah.
So that may be why they don't, it may not be permitted, but it also may not be prohibited.
Correct. That's
And
kind of
therefore
where my
it
brain
becomes
is
a
going.
conservation. If you dump something in a pond, it's a conservation issue.
Yeah. But I guess the other question is this: is it your sense that this is really a positive application compared to some of the others?
It's hard for me to make that judgment because when I did look through their monitoring reports, and it's sort of apples to oranges in terms of what we monitor for cyanobacteria and make advisory calls on. I didn't see that type of data in their cyanobacteria monitoring. So I can't really opine on that, right? Without having
It'd be interesting to find out, wouldn't it?
Without having the same data and criteria that we're using to issue advisories for cyanobacteria.
Isn't there data in Europe on this?
In Europe?
Yeah.
I
That's where it's
don't,
been
I don't
used.
know if I found a study in Europe. For hydrogen peroxide algicides, there are some
That's
European
probably true.
studies.
What about in England and in Europe?
I came across one study that again suggested that as the barley decomposed, produced the hydrogen peroxide, and if it achieved concentrations of 2 milligrams of hydrogen peroxide per liter, then that essentially was the level of hydrogen peroxide needed to suppress cyanobacteria. I've read something similar in another study that was looking at specifically hydrogen peroxide algicides and the concentrations needed to suppress cyanobacteria. So it seems like that's the correlation of how this works as a,
Why don't we
treatment
put this
technique.
one in the parking lot for now and move on, just because I think this is interesting, but, we'll come back, we got a lot of other stuff to cover, so.
Nashawanek Pond. Good thing it wasn't the longest pond in Massachusetts, which Scott could probably name.
Gog, Gog, Manchog, Gog, Chupanagungumog?
That one.
Say, what?
My roommate in college looked right on it. He'd always pronounce it in my mind.
Really?
That's real?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, it's about this long on the sign.
Wow.
Webster.
Webster. Yeah.
Okay.
Where's Webster?
Who's coming
Right next to Waldo.
All right, and then another type of chemical control we're all very familiar with is phosphorus inactivation, or often referred to as alum treatments. This is rapid reduction of phosphorus levels through the application of a phosphorus complexing compound. There are many types of those, but we in particular have used aluminum sulfate to strip phosphorus both out of the water column, and then as it settles on the bottom of the pond, it binds to the phosphorus in the sediments, thereby preventing its release under low oxygen conditions. This type of an application may result in a fish kill or mussel die-offs if the concentrations of aluminum sulfate are not properly buffered.
That happened,
It did happen.
and Rob Gatewood was in the hospital because of it.
Wow.
The
Yeah.
former conservation agent.
So it's very important that you read the instructions and you do it according to the manual. Effectiveness of this could be short-term if phosphorus sources are not well understood or other inputs are not addressed. And so what I mean by that is in ponds where you've already controlled a lot of your watershed source inputs, maybe runoff from land, stormwater, septic systems, cranberry bogs, those alum treatments are likely more effective because you're controlling now the legacy phosphorus coming from the pond sediments. But if you haven't controlled what's coming from the watershed, the alum treatment itself may have a shorter effectiveness. But even short term is on the order of years, compared to some of these alum treatments have improved water quality for 15 plus years, such as in Hamblin Pond, was I think almost 18 years before there was another algae bloom. But we've done this locally in Hamblin, Mystic, Levels, and Jubal Pond, and then there are several other examples across Cape Cod. Pictures at the bottom really just represent, looking down at a barge, dispersing alum just below the water's surface. And then the picture next to that basically shows like these particles surrounded by white. That's basically the alum attaching to available phosphorus. And then it eventually settles to the bottom of the pond and strips that phosphorus out of the water column. That's how it works. Then we have physical controls. These address water quality impairments through the alteration of water levels or inputs, aeration, mechanical harvesting of algae and plants, or dredging. Examples of this are aeration, enhanced circulation, such as solar bees, hydrologic manipulations, dredging of sediment, use of dyes and surface covers to restrict plant growth, or surface skimming, mechanical removal of plants, floating treatment wetlands, and sonication. This is a pretty extensive list, and there might even be more than this.
I'll just mention that Mass DEP, I don't know if you know this, put a floating wetland in Eagle Pond, Katuitt this summer.
Was it Mass DEP or John Paul II high school students?
Oh, I don't know.
High school.
Yeah, I thought it was the high school
Oh, was
students.
it? Because there was a, you could scan information. I thought DEP's name was on there too, but it was pretty nice looking.
Oh, really?
I don't know if there was any data collected on it or not.
I'm not sure. I thought they were going to, but I don't know. We do have a picture of it in here. So hydrologic manipulations, essentially you're changing the water inflow or outflow of a pond, or removing or adding water in order to control cyanobacteria levels and growth. This could reduce the nutrient levels and improve dissolved oxygen levels, but it may also send nutrient-rich water somewhere else, causing problems there. It may be expensive because it often requires some type of water controls or pumps in order to complete, and may be difficult to permit depending on exactly what you're trying to do. It could also result in unintended consequences to aquatic organisms. So in particular, if you draw down the water, you'd be exposing, a large portion of the shoreline or pond bottom near shore, where certain species of either aquatic plants, or potentially rare aquatic plants live, or species, and exposing them to the air would kill them. Any mussels or things that aren't as mobile, like fish. And then another type is dilution, so that's where you would add water to the pond to decrease the water residence time. So that's just generally hard to do, because where are you going to get, for most of our ponds, where would we get the water to dilute the water that's in the pond? And then you also have selective drawdown, which is what this picture is basically demonstrating. You would pump the nutrient-rich bottom waters out of the pond, thereby removing a significant amount of the nutrient source. Of course, this is all temporary because, like, a lot of times in the summer, stratification sets up over the first 3-4 weeks of June. And so if you were to draw this water down, imagine you'd have to do it in July and August until the temperatures drop low enough to not need to do it. So again, maybe not all the most effective. There's aeration. So aeration controls sediment nutrient release through the aeration of the water column, breaking down the stratification and eliminating low oxygen in bottom waters. This basically provides algae control through a reduction of the nutrient-rich bottom waters by keeping by reducing the stratification and keeping the entire water column well oxygenated. You keep the phosphorus in the sediments. It requires constant operation to be effective and tends to be less cost-effective than alum, which is why it's not typically recommended. Some examples of this, we've done aeration in Lovell's Pond. It was, basically installed aeration at the bottom of this 50-acre pond that's roughly max depth around 13 to 14 meters deep. It would stratify annually and have nutrient-rich bottom water, so we added the aeration to the bottom of that pond in order to prevent the stratification in the nutrient-rich bottom waters from feeding cyanobacteria blooms. However, the pump would temporarily break down and stratification would set up, and then we get the pump working, which would then mix all that nutrient-rich water into the surface. Warm surface waters, which in some cases made the algae problem worse. We attempted this for 3 years, but ultimately decommissioned it in 2012. Sarah's Pond in Orleans is a smaller pond, not quite as deep, more of a shallow pond. And they installed nanobubble technology in 2019 and 2020, but they felt like this technology really wasn't ready for prime time. I think is the way they kind of worded it, because it just wasn't able to provide enough oxygen to sufficiently oxygenate the water column and keep the nutrients from coming out of those sediments. So then they decided to use an oxygen saturation technology. So a slightly different technology, but still adding oxygen to the water. They started this in 2021, and they learned a lot of lessons in 2021. So in 2022, they worked through the problems and actually found that it was quite effective at oxygenating the water column and improving overall water quality for Sarah's Pond. But they noted that it also temporarily shuts down, and that it was almost like you have to expect that the equipment will temporarily shut down and you have to get it going again, as kind of a constant part of the maintenance. So floating treatment wetlands, we just completed piloting this in Long Pond Marston's Mills to understand more about how floating treatment wetlands assimilate phosphorus into their plant biomass, which can later be harvested, and thus permanently removing the phosphorus from the pond. The reason why we wanted to pilot this in Long Pond Marston's Mills is because it suffers from annual cyanobacteria blooms, and we wanted to see if it was possible to reduce those phosphorus levels through the addition of floating treatment wetlands. Previous studies that we reviewed indicated that you could remove anywhere from 0.1 kilograms to 1.8 kilograms per 100 square feet of floating treatment wetland. This is a big range, right? The 0.1 kilograms came from a PhD dissertation study conducted by a student at Northeastern. They deployed these wetlands on the Charles River at the bottom left of the screen, and that was their whole PhD project. They found somewhere around 0.1 kilograms of phosphorus was removed per 100 square feet of floating treatment wetland. Conversely, you could find like studies from more in the south where floating treatment wetlands were deployed in stormwater ponds, and they had much higher phosphorus removal rates. Maybe that's because there's a lot more phosphorus in that stormwater retention pond where they deployed the floating treatment wetland. Nonetheless, we wanted to attempt it here locally in a pond that was troubled with excess phosphorus to see how, if it could be effective at managing phosphorus levels. So we did 2 years, so May of 2024, we in the middle planted these floating media with small wetland plants and let them grow up all of last summer and then all of this summer. Then this October, we harvested all of those plants, which are currently being processed for their phosphorus content, and we also weighed all of the plants to get a mass. So if you have the phosphorus content of the plants and the mass of the plants, you can use that to determine the phosphorus contained in the plants that you harvested. This will tell us how much phosphorus was removed. We did that a little less than a month ago, so we don't have the results yet. But we will have the results soon. This was fun because, I mean, we'd go out there and we'd see turtles on the wetlands. Someone said they saw an otter. There's like a mussel actually. It's hard to see, but in the bottom picture, there's like a small mussel on it. Things would like hop up on there and use it as habitat. And then this year, the John Paul II students also attempted a floating treatment wetland out on Eagle Pond. It looks like they basically used some kind of 2x4s to create the floating structure, but then fill it with wine corks. And the wine corks provide the floating media for that structure. So if you got a lot of wine corks laying around and you have your own pond, maybe you deploy your own wetland.
What are you saying?
I'm trying to understand the numbers here. Does this look I don't have a sense of what a kilogram means.
Right. Good point. In Long Pond Marston's Mills, the Lake Pond Management Study indicated that if we could remove 7 kilograms of phosphorus from the pond every year, that would help.
In its entirety, or?
Yeah, in the entire pond. That would help control the cyanobacteria growth.
So this is significant.
So yeah, if you were getting 1.8 kilograms,
Yeah.
that would be great. Because we deployed 500 square feet worth of islands in the pond. But my guess is we're not going to be anywhere close to 1.8.
You put a little outboard on the back, you could sort of putt around the pond all day and enjoy the view.
Right.
Are these free moving?
No, we anchored them in the pond. We didn't want them to be floating around.
And how big is?
They were about 7 by 7 feet. And we wanted them to be fairly small because we figured upon removal, they would be quite heavy, and they were. They weighed almost 300 pounds each upon removal, and that was after all the roots and plant surface biomass had been harvested.
Have they experimented with what kind of, bushes or plants that you would, put in there? Or is there any indication that some are more beneficial than others?
Actually, yeah. So are you familiar with pickerelweed?
Yes.
Yeah, so we thought pickerelweed would grow great on these things. Not one pickerelweed survived.
Okay.
Probably because they like the muckier sediments that they actually grow in. But like milkweed did really well. Soft rush. No, we did not plant purple looster. Soft rush did, the rushes, we planted a couple different rushes. They all did very well. But yeah, the types of plants mattered, and that's why we planted a variety, because we kind of wanted to learn the lesson of which plants will do better if we were to continue this type of study.
That sounds optimistic.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people were really into this. I presented it at the One Cape, and I got an email just today about this type of technology, so people are interested. So then we have watershed controls. These address water quality impairments by managing nutrients and nutrient inputs from the watershed. Examples of this are sewers, phosphorus reducing septic system, fertilizer reductions, pond buffer enhancement, stormwater control measures, and permeable reactive barriers. So just to go into a couple, phosphorus reducing septic systems, there aren't many, but we have Jane Ward here who has installed a Fuji Clean CRX system in her yard, which actually treats both phosphorus and nitrogen in her wastewater. The way it treats phosphorus is through iron electrolysis. So they basically use iron filings in one of the tanks in order to basically cause the phosphorus to precipitate out into that tank, which then can later be removed, and thereby it doesn't go to the leach field where it leaches into the ground. The table on the right is the data from her system. So phosphorus is in blue. You can see right after they installed the tank, the levels were just over 8 milligrams per liter. Of course, we don't have a clear starting point, but Mass DC has suggested that their starting effluent before this tank was maybe around 30 milligrams per liter.
30 to 38. They came back 3 times because they didn't move.
Yeah, and their levels might be quite high because they have a unique situation where they're very water conscious. So overall, they use less water, which can increase the concentration of their wastewater effluent.
Maybe for you, Jay, who's doing the monitoring of this?
The first 2 years, it was Mass TC and the company. The company was interested because this was the first one they put in the US that also reduced phosphorus. So for the first year, they both came monthly, and then Mass TC came quarterly, but the company had been coming monthly until a month or 2 ago. And now we're actually paying for our Q6 months monitoring that will start in March. But I think something that happened too is that our nitrogen was super high at the beginning. And this was October, I believe, maybe. Is that, yeah, the first measurement was November. So I think they felt like it took a while to get the bacteria awake.
All of your total nitrogen levels are actually below 10. Or wait, sorry, no, they're not. I'm looking at the wrong side.
No, they're not.
You're right. On the right, it's actually 50.
They were pretty high until spring. And they were futzing around with, should they put more carbon in?
That's
or,
right.
They couldn't figure out why it wasn't working other than it was over the winter. But as soon as the phosphorus just plummeted, and it's been, many months it's been undetectable. And that was as long as the power is on, though. We had an interesting glitch this spring where we had a power outage that we didn't realize. It was one of those that just flicked on and off. And the design feature that was a problem was that the alarm that's supposed to go off when the air pump stops and the power to the electrolysis stops, the alarm also shorted out. It didn't have power. It needed to be separately wired or on a battery or something. So we went for 2 or 3 weeks where it basically reverted to, a Title V with no special behavior. And the levels went up of both nitrogen and phosphorus, and took a month or so to get it back under control.
But from a phosphorus perspective, within 2-3 months of installation, they were generally below 1 milligram per liter. They have had to replace the iron electrodes that are in the system, I think 3 times.
About every 9 months.
Which is running almost, at least once a year in order to maintain this effluent level. There are other types of phosphorus reducing septic systems that I've just listed here below, the Phosphorfade, Phosphorid, and Waterloo ECP. All of these systems are considered in pilot approval status with DEP, generally achieving less than 1 milligram per liter, except for Phosphorfade is less than 0.3 milligrams per liter. Seems like they're using some type of filter, media that might improve the phosphorus uptake in that system. So nowhere near the same level that a lot of our nitrogen reducing septic systems are at, but they're out there, they're available. And cost, it seems to be a bit of an inhibitor for some people. I know you had an experience in getting some costs taken care of, but still significant
We were
costs
given
for
the
you guys.
system because ours was under an EPA grant to MSTC, so we don't even know. We kept asking, well, what would this cost if we bought it? Nobody would say, because it was always, it depends. But we have the sense that we still had to pay about half.
Yeah.
We paid between 20 and 25 just for permitting, and we had to pay for the excavation, the installation. We didn't have to replace our leach field, so that was a pretty big savings. But I think overall, it makes me feel like the numbers that Bruce's group have come up with for IA septics of around 50,000 is probably reasonable ballpark.
Right. And then we also have permeable reactive barriers that have been used for phosphorus control. This essentially controls phosphorus with an underground permeable wall that binds to the target nutrient. So we talked about PRBs previously for nitrogen removal, but if the media you would use to bind to phosphorus is different than that of nitrogen. For nitrogen, you're trying to promote denitrification in the ground, versus with phosphorus, you're trying to bind that phosphorus to a phosphorus complexing compound. This has been effective for reducing phosphorus in groundwater, but it requires detailed groundwater monitoring and modeling to determine the contaminated groundwater flow path, potentially extensive permitting for nearshore installation, and we'll see why in a minute. And then you also need public space to be able to install that. So there is an example of this on Cape Cod. They installed a PRB within the near shore area of a Shumet pond. So it's actually area under the pond surface. And they had to create cofferdams in order to dewater the area, excavate it, and install iron filings. The reason why they wanted to do this was because the Shumet was being impacted by cyanobacteria blooms due to 60 years of treated wastewater disposal in the upgradient watershed from, I think it was the base.
Treatment plant.
Yeah, the treatment plant at the base. This plume entered the pond within 60 feet of the shore along a roughly 400-foot section. So this is that's a large area compared to if we were to think about this for septic systems, which would be a small area. The USGS and EPA really assisted in this effort in kind of understanding how it would work. They installed and monitored roughly 200 sampling points that were within this pond bottom where the PRB was installed in order to determine the effectiveness of that PRB. But overall, it was clearly a successful removal of the phosphorus and nitrate that was coming from that plume. Because as that plume passed through the PRB, the other side was basically non-detect.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, Amber, but I think one distinction between the nitrogen PRBs and the phosphorus ones are the nitrogen ones are denitrifying, so they can work for a long time. These are, they're
Complex.
precipitating iron, so that's, you're gonna have to replace that at some point.
Yes, correct.
Maybe you were gonna get there, sorry.
No, I wasn't, but since we're talking about it, yes, you would have to replace it at some point. So if ever all of the iron was bound to, and the plume continued to enter Shumet Pond and needed to be managed, you would essentially have to repeat the project, the installation part of the project. I don't know if they're considering that in a Shumet at this time. I know they did an alum treatment a couple times, so I'm not sure if it's totally managed or if it's ongoing. I think the other thing is with the iron filings, you could actually see some migration of that iron into the pond bottom, so like red on the bottom of the pond in the area where that PRB had been installed. So.
Is there a
And
problem disposing of that used PRB?
not that I know of.
Amber, thank you, that was really excellent, really helpful. Butch, I just wanna, maybe you just wanna mention the conference you guys held, was it last weekend? The Barnstable Pond Coalition, is that the right name?
Open house, yes.
Open house, you wanna just, I don't know if everybody knew, but is it a new group that's working on this now?
Actually, it is. We started in spring of this year. It's basically a coalition trying to put focus on as well as offer solutions for the 163 ponds in Barnstable. Our intent is to work in conjunction with the town and in cooperation, basically attacking areas where they're not able to do it. So we have a volunteer staff group that we're putting together. We started out sampling 7 ponds that the town was not sampling. So we increased the number of ponds that are being sampled from 17% to 22%. And that was very successful this summer. We're hoping to take a closer focus on it. We're one of the few towns that did not have a ponds coalition. We talked with Z, we talked with APCC, and trying to see if somebody else was going to fill this niche, and it became obvious that if we wanted to have an impact on our ponds, that we needed to create the organization. We've been working really closely with Z on that because we basically share much the same space. Our open house was just kind of a kickoff that we're here. We had good representation from the town council, which we really appreciate. Our state representative was there, which we appreciate. We had Andrew Gottlieb talking, as well as Janet Milkman made presentations. We had a number of exhibits. Brian Horsley had an exhibit on urine diversion toilets. Susan Bear had an exhibit on the old ladies against underwater garbage. And APCC had Julie Hambrook that runs their cyanobacteria program. She had attended. So it was well attended, excited about it. But we want to play in that space where, when, for instance, with cyanobacteria sampling, the town doesn't go on private property for the most part. But we want to work with the private homeowners and get permission to go out and do the cyanobacteria on their ponds. So it's a space that that the town isn't playing in, but still isn't being taken care of, so.
So Butch and I spoke a couple weeks ago, and I've added a recommendation here to be considered for town council to maybe do a little bit more focusing on ponds going forward, but we're gonna have to talk about exactly what that is and how we're gonna get there.
So one of the things that one of the things that need to happen for ponds, and Z and I talked about this briefly at one point. So what happened between the CWMP and now on the nitrogen front is Z's group took on nitrogen IAs and did the yeoman's effort of getting them from pilot to, it feels like now, almost to the, to the threshold of general approval and stuff. That same sort of effort now needs, because what we get, at least at the DPW a lot, is people looking for a solution and, other than Jane's one Fuji Clean, that's the only example we have of anything. And stuff other than floating wetlands, which we're playing with and that kind of stuff, so. I think there's a conversation we had at some point in time about, all right, we wanna position ourselves for success in the ponds, we need to kinda get the tools developed on the septic system front for places where sewers may not be coming or is not coming for a long time. Because there's a number of ponds we've looked at where the nutrient issue there is the septic system surrounding the pond.
We are very much behind that move. We're putting together a scientific advisory council.
Okay.
Hopefully they'll be meeting in the next couple of weeks. We're meeting with Brian Baumgartner to discuss who are some of the manufacturers we should be talking to. We really want to take Z's example and do the same thing for phosphorus. But at $50,000 a installation, the need for 10 or so to get through the pilot, and then the 50 or so you need after that, that's a big chunk of money. And so we're starting small, trying to establish credibility and build an audience first. But that is clearly our long-term goal.
Because that's gonna be, 5 years from now, when we're having this conversation again, hopefully the conversation is, all right, now we have a tool, how do we employ it?
And my thought was, the success that we've had at Schubel's Pond, I think really helped move things along tremendously on the nitrogen reducing systems. And my thought was, why don't we try to design something similar for dealing with phosphorus? I haven't even begun to think about what that could look like, but some sort of a demonstration pilot project where we could take some of these technologies and maybe focus on one pond and see what we can learn. And so that's one of the recommendations that I've written in here in part because of our conversation. But so why don't we, unless other questions for Amber, that was really good. What about the slides? Are they available?
I'll make them available.
Great.
I just had one follow-up. I read this morning, the 2024 annual report, CWMP annual report, status report. It's really cool. I had not looked at that whole thing, but I was looking at it for ponds, and so somewhere in there, just like it said, the pond strategy. You've got monitoring and all that happening in a lot of the ponds, and working with different people putting together the data. But it seemed like the strategy was to pick several ponds and kind of do some detailed work on them. So you did like Schubel's and Long Pond and Lovell's Pond. I forget what the fourth one was in that mix. And I was kind of curious, and I tried to follow up with there's some reference to presentations on it and that, but I was wondering, I'm kind of curious to see your reports on them, like the actual, I don't know who worked on it for you, the SMAS people.
UMass Dartmouth School for Marine Science and Technology worked on the projects. On Barnstable Water Resources, under ponds and lakes, we do have the completed reports and presentations on a webpage there. We still have to present Lovell's Pond. Lake Wequacket is also a presentation we're preparing right now for presentation.
On those pond projects where that's going on, is there like a pond stakeholder group that you're working with also, or are they just working straight?
The local stakeholder groups, so Shubal Pond didn't really have like a Shubal Pond Association, but they did have a homeowners association that was interested in our progress. So we would just keep that homeowners association updated because they were interested in the development of that project. At Long Pond Marston's Mills, they have an association, so we kept them updated. I think they likewise kept Long Pond Farms conservation area people updated as well through their network. Lovell's Pond didn't have an association, so it doesn't, we've really only kind of maintained connections with the people who, like the ponds that have associations. So
and I'll just put up.
So like Waquacket, is there a group that you're working with, stakeholder group for that one, or I'm not sure what the status of that one was.
we're working with SMAS on that project.
We still have a draft report.
Yeah.
Do you have the one for Long Pond Centerville from them yet?
It's pending.
Okay.
The draft report's available to people to look at, to give you
Not
input?
until we
or-
review them and finalize.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we like to finalize them and then post them.
okay.
So.
Might be an interesting role for a pond coalition to look at something, not just with the idea of one pond, but several ponds and how it transcends the whole pond issue. Anyway, yeah, so I'll go check out, see where I can get those reports, maybe.
I'll just mention, I also was contacted by Rick Moore. I don't know how many people know Rick. He's on Long Pond. I knew Rick because he was a senior executive at Tetra Tech, retired engineer, pretty well-established engineer. And he's very interested in getting a little bit more involved. You spoke with him recently.
Yes, yeah, he's agreed to be on our scientific group.
Yeah, so he could be a pretty good resource and wants to offer some services, I think.
We're excited about that.
Good. All right, we have two more significant agenda items here. Dan, how would you like to do it?
Well, what I'll do is let me put together a memo that I'll send out to you tomorrow, but the gist of it is that the state, through the SRF programs, put aside money to provide low-interest loans to communities so they can loan out the money to people to upgrade and replace their septic system, very much like the Aqua Fund does for the county. So they have low-interest loans, they have zero-interest loans, and if we get the zero-interest loans, they want to pass that on to the homeowners, so they get an even lesser rate. They also have subsidies where they reduce the amount you have to pay back. And that's all dependent on affordability in the community and formulas they have. But, so that's the gist of it. But let me send you a memo out tomorrow via email, so you have everything that
And just for
found in the
clarification,
research.
this is the community septic management program that
Yes.
you're talking about.
Yep.
I think the first thing you said is the funding was coming from SRF.
Yes.
Well, that's actually good to hear, because what I keep hearing is to qualify for the Cape and Islands Water Protection Fund and the forgiveness, it's gotta be SRF and you gotta get on the IUP. So my theory is if it is linked enough to SRF, then it ought to be able to be considered for, then, in fact, I think it already is on the IUP, I've seen it as a line item. So my understanding is it's up to the Cape and Islands Water Protection Fund to vote this as something that would be acceptable to then give the forgiveness. I guess that's all I wanted to say, but I think that's, so yeah, whatever you can put together would be great, Dan, because it seems like this is still a potential source.
It's just not a lot of money statewide.
Right. But if the vehicle's there, then we can get the state to fund it.
Yeah, but
Should be great.
there's a lot of concern about even funding continuing at the current levels in the
Right, I understand.
foreseeable
I
future.
understand.
What is the funding? You said it's not a lot of money, how much is it?
$5 million.
That's what's in there now, right?
Not a lot of money.
No.
And how would that be applied here, like as a pilot or something, or, what is it? I didn't,
It's just it's a loan program
for people, for
that are
septic
replacing
systems.
septic systems, upgrading septic systems,
Okay,
and
and that's above and beyond Aqua Fund. kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean,
Good.
I'm not sure we do it with the ACWA fund in place. And
Yeah.
why would we need an additional program that uses the same money that does the same exact thing?
Well, my understanding is that community septic fund and aqua fund goes to homeowners. I think the idea is if we start a NR program, with a lot of this going on, perhaps the town could be a player in that. And distribute, for example, in other towns, they're talking about bulk purchasing the units and then making them available to homeowners. So there could be a different way to do it potentially. And again, I'm not sure what the advantages and disadvantages are, something we need to think about. But anyways, your memo, that'd be great, Dan. Thank you. Okay, well, why don't we move on to my recommendation, my preliminary recommendations, and we do have hard copies here.
Real quick, Scott.
Yes, I'm sorry.
We did update the setback figure for the recommendation that the committee recommended. Did you wanna pull that up, or did you?
Yeah, that's true. That's 1,000-foot
Yeah,
one. I'd like to get that figure too to add to this once.
I know.
Yeah, well,
We just completed
It was
it
just.
today.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I'll send those around. There's not as many of those. I think if you can skip the staff, then there should be a plethora of these. Should be.
Nice.
You guys want it? Yeah, I got, you printed mine.
Chris, you also have copies of your recommendations?
Here you go.
You're going around there, okay.
got that?
Somewhere.
Yeah,
At home, so.
But while this is going around, let me just say this is the very first rough cut at what I've heard. And I've already gotten some comments from several people. Thank you for doing that. And I'll take, after today's discussion, I'll take another crack at revisions based on what I've heard, and if people email me more. But the idea here is, this is my first thoughts as to what I might present to the town council. I guess it's gonna be in January. I still haven't seen a copy. I think it's down here, hard copy. Is there more? Yeah, it's still going around. It went by me. I missed it. I don't need, I know. Is there another one or no?
Here.
All right, oh, there they are. Okay. This way?
We've all got them.
I got one already, yeah.
So, we can just kind of take this from the top and run through these. I don't know if we have time to get everything in detail, but maybe I'll skip to the first couple three, or just thanks and recognition of the good work the town's already done. I certainly want to do that. So number 5, I guess, starts to get into some of the technologies. And number 6 starts to get really into Amber's maps. Maybe we can start there. Basically saying that I think we're ready for prime time in trying to start adopting some of these NR systems. So actually, this is numbers 6, 7, and 8. So what I'm recommending, and 8 really gets into the specifics of the 1,000-foot buffer here. So I guess the primary question is, do we want to stick with that 1,000-foot buffer? Is this still a recommendation that people feel comfortable with?
Yeah, I agree.
So Amber, did you just want to?
Yeah, do you wanna
I think
go-
this map
do you
is
wanna
self-evident, but why don't you just highlight what we're looking at?
So, map of Barnstable.
That's what it is?
The blue lines represent our watershed lines. So if you are a parcel within 1,000 feet of any of our nitrogen sensitive estuaries, which are Pompanesett Bay, Three Bays, Centerville River, Halls Creek, and Lewis Bay. And that's because Halls Creek is part of Lewis Bay, according to Mass DEP. And or I guess not, and/or you're within 1,000 feet of any of the surface waters draining to those nitrogen-sensitive estuaries, then you are a parcel that needs to potentially upgrade your septic system to a nitrogen-reducing septic system. Those parcels are in green if they've already got a septic system on them. If they're in red or pink, those are parcels that are not currently developed, so don't have a septic system.
But if they were developed, they would apply.
Yes, correct.
And
So they're out of phase 1 too.
And the gray areas are the CWMP areas, and the dark gray. I don't know why our CWMP areas are kind of a
We
light
did
gray.
3 different colors, so the dark gray is the existing sewer on the right side of the screen.
Yes.
Kind of in the middle, the medium gray is phase 1 and phase 2, because that distinction was made in the regulation, the proposed regulations.
Okay.
And then the light gray on the left side, the west side, would be phase 3 or the stages, because there was a distinction made there as well.
So phase 2 comes all the way down here?
It does, correct.
And to that
Actually, a
point,
portion of that's phase 1.
the stages are currently shown as part of this plan, but the reality is we keep talking about, and internally you're talking about the stages are probably gonna fall into phase 2. So you probably should independently think about, I mean, I'm sure Shoestring Bay would be pleased to get a solution like tomorrow. But technically, I would argue the stages are probably gonna fall into phase 2 and thus should be excluded from this, however we include it for this picture.
Because we tried to interpret the regulation based on exactly the
The green
words.
parcels that are in phase 3, are they not part of phase 3, or are they?
They are part of phase 3.
They
The
are.
green part, well,
Yes.
not necessarily. They're either part of phase 3 or they're not part of the CWMP. I think the ones that you're speaking of are part of phase 3. Because you see the black boundary, I'm gonna approach the screen because it'll be easier.
But are we saying we'd include that because they don't get there for 20 years?
So that's what the
Why?
proposed regulation
Okay,
said.
fine.
They said only phase 1 or
Right,
phase 2
right.
would be excluded.
Or 20 years.
Yeah, so this black line here is the boundary of
Yeah.
phase 3,
Yeah,
so
that's
yes,
it.
they're all in
Okay,
phase 3.
Got it.
And this recommendation, you'll see at the bottom of page 3, does refer to the regulation, which obviously is included here, but you may remember we have a draft of that we discussed as well. So we probably should take another look at that, maybe for the next meeting, and see if there are edits on that as well, for suggestions, but any thoughts on, is this something we still wanna recommend, or are there significant changes to this?
I think it's a good map, so we're really talking about the developed parcels first of all, right? All parcels, it's a lot of parcels, but they're not developed, so.
Yeah.
That kind of does. You know, my only comment is not, besides the numbers of parcels, maybe there's a way to calculate loads and cost. Dan's gonna ask that question, for sure. How much does it matter? What kind of volume are we talking about? What are the costs associated with it? No? Isn't that right? Yeah, so I think we need to do that math.
We could quantify the math, yeah, I mean, we would basically do a standard Title V system and what the reduction is and
Right, I have it.
multiply it by that.
Yeah, it'd be, these are the ones.
It's
Yeah,
not-
there's 2,100 parcels in
It's not hard
total.
math, I just think
Yeah.
we ought to include it as part of the math, so.
I think you'll want it as part of the recommendation, certainly,
Right.
yeah.
Well, just quick math, it's about 2,000 parcels, developed parcels, subject to the regs. Tom, how many kilograms per house? About 4 to 5?
I think it's 7.4.
If we use 4, that's
more
8,000
than that.
kilograms.
Amber's
More
got a
than
different.
That's
Four-
okay.
Scott.
4.7.
The ME, if you go on the MEP reports, it's usually around 7.4
Yeah.
kilograms
Oh,
of
4 is way low,
nitrogen
okay.
per single family.
Okay. What was I thinking, 4 point, I'm thinking of Wellfleet, sorry.
That's just,
Seasonal.
that's just from the septic tank.
7, that's right, 7.
If you look at the
These are
factor,
close to the
nitrogen
water
factors
parcels
table and
used.
do the math on it,
Okay.
at least that's what I've been using.
Well, okay, so if we
Yeah, well, they're
use,
gonna be, there's a lot of people living in the close to the water houses. It's not, you know,
So if you use
It's not a
10,
little old lady and a little old man and a dog. It's like, you know,
Yeah.
I think.
We can do the math
It's
based
a
off
family.
water usage, which is how we developed the CWMP.
okay,
So it's
so we
apples
can
to
get
apples.
that, we can get the
So we
word.
have all these parcels identified, we know what their water usage is,
We should just use
and we can
that.
do a straight calculation
It's a
based
really
off
good,
that.
it's a good idea. Can we blow up this table? Because that's gonna be a bigger part of the discussion when we present it. And, yeah, maybe it's the third column of estimated kilograms. Right, I'm talking about when we present this, yeah. And if it is 10, that's
Whatever.
20,000 kilograms.
If we have the actual math, that's better.
That's pretty significant. That's now,
Well, it won't be all of it, because the percentage, there's still a residual.
say again?
There'll still be a residual. So if it's 7 from the typical home, there'll still be a residual left, so
Oh,
it
I
won't
see,
be
right,
7.
right, true.
Yeah, it'll be
Doesn't-
5 or whatever it is, yeah.
Good point.
Right.
And, let's see, what I was thinking. Yeah, the triggers, can we just go review the triggers to see if we're still, if we have those handy?
Do you have those?
New homes, upgrades, expansions,
Can
failures.
you pull them up?
Yeah.
Just to make sure we're still on.
Is this the one
I think we need that, and for town council,
Yeah.
that's going to tell us.
Yes,
Is it approximately 5% a year, which is, I think, what we were talking
Right.
about originally, right?
yes, that's right, yep.
Just looking at the green areas over in the east part of town, Hyannis here. You know, you look at the phasing, I guess, like the avenues and all that. What phase are those?
Three.
Three or three.
That's why they picked up as green on this.
Yeah, yeah, and then the other thing is that Halls Creek is really one of these things that has a similar capacity, true? But you're including it by virtue of the fact that
But that's why that
MEP
was,
is saying.
the reason why that was in phase 3 was because it wasn't a nitrogen driver when we did the CWMP, it was for other reasons.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it's a good discussion point, Tom, that I think you may wanna consider as a group, because Halls Creek is as far as an MEP report goes, it was part of the Lewis Bay MEP report. However, that estuary does have a similar capacity for additional nitrogen, so we haven't identified a nitrogen problem there. So it is a little different than the remainder of the south-facing embayments in town. Additionally, the Avs, from a practical perspective, do have quite tight lots.
Yep.
So implementing IAs on them may be very difficult. So it may be worth considering treating that differently, but I just give that,
We also
give
the
that to y'all to consider.
We also did the same thing when we first saw the map, it was like, whoa.
you know,
But-
All right, I just wanna go back to the outline here, cause, so that's the map, those are the triggers. Again, if people have thoughts, get back to me, but I think looks like we're still on board with moving this forward as a recommendation, which is great. I just wanna go back to my outline, cause number 10 is the next one, is we need an RME if we're gonna do this. And I wanna report.
Why?
To manage all the septics,
You don't need an RME.
according to DEP you do.
If you're using it as part of your, as the
Right.
centerpiece of your plan, you're not. You have a plan that already complies with TMDL.
True, but if.
So in this case, you don't need it, you can choose to do one, but just to be clear, you don't need to have one.
Okay, but if we're gonna potentially try to get credit for nitrogen reduction to DEP, which I would think would be of interest.
So the way we've talked about that in the past, is the way we're gonna try to get credit is actually at the estuary. With all of this stuff, whether it be Mill Pond, whether it be the aquaculture, whether it be the work Z's doing and that kind of stuff. It's not trying to develop a credit for each individual technology and then add them together in a mathematical model. It's what's actually happening at the Sentinel stations, what's actually happening in the estuary.
Right, 'cause
And it's that impact.
I've heard that discussions with Drew say in other towns, 3 other towns, they're gonna provide the credits at the sources and then also look at the Sentinel station monitoring.
We elected to not go that route when we did the CWP. Because there was discussion at the very beginning about if you do alternatives, then what are we, then fighting it out with DEP for credits. And what we said explicitly was, look, we'll do them at risk and then we'll just see what the results are though are on the environment.
Well, let me also suggest that there are other advantages to an RME. One is cost.
That's fine, I just don't want it, when you started the conversation saying you have to have an RME, that's not true in our case.
Okay.
You may elect to have an as I said, you can elect to have an RME because there's other reasons you feel it's a good idea.
All right.
That's fine, but just don't feel like you can do the IA program and not put an RME on top of it, and it's still valid because you have a C2MP behind it that's doing already the TMDL piece.
Well, just to finish the thought, it seemed like there's two other significant benefits to an RME. One is cost. Instead of each homeowner contracting with a firm, you have an entity that's coordinating that. And the other one is performance. I've been hearing many times that their system, actually I was on a call with Tisbury today, and they're finding out the systems that they've been unplugged. Nobody's monitoring them, and it's because there's nobody, it's between the homeowner and a contractor as opposed to an RME. So I hear you, Rob, but I still think, my thought is we still should suggest this to the council as we don't need it, but I think there's some other advantages. And the thing that I want to report on is I had a call from this morning from Mass Tech, and they, as I think people know, they have a grant to look to help develop RME and offer services to towns. And they have done a recent assessment on their funding and the timing, and there's actually a proposal that I think I sent out to the town of Barnstable for consideration where they can provide some of these services at either low cost or no cost for a period of time. So if the council elects to go forward with an RME, we might have the ability to have these guys do it at low or no cost. Take a look at the proposal, and my thought would be if there's interest in this, we could have them come at some point and present the details on that. But again, timing wise, I just got that call as I'm preparing for this meeting, so I thought I would at least report it. And it may be something we want to take advantage of. It might be good timing.
Sounds good.
There it is right there. Yeah, this is what he sent me, so I'll pass that around as well. You can look at those.
Yeah, it seems like the recommendation is resulting in changes for 2,100 parcels to upgrade. That you would think that would be fall under some type of town administration.
That's, I guess, when I look at RMEs, the way they've been defined, it's a number, an RME isn't one thing, it could be 5 different things. And when I look at RME land, and I think about Mass Tech in particular, I think that's a great warehouse for data. But in my mind, all the other RME functions could and should be done by the town.
The town, yeah.
Idea.
Yeah.
Because DPW could also do all the other stuff, whether it's cranberry bogs or with the monitoring, to me, should be collectively in your world. That's the way I would think about it. Doesn't mean that the Mass Tech doesn't collect and warehouse the data, so there's somewhere for DEP to go one-stop shopping for all the data on Cape Cod Islands or something. That's how I might think about it.
Yeah, that's right. I think the town certainly can be the RME, but there may be some services that they want to team up on. Okay, well, that's number 10. Think about that. 11 talks about the phosphorus reducing systems that we just heard from Amber. And, certainly want to get behind that, I think, based on today's conversation. Sounds like the Freeze and Clean system is one that's working pretty well, and we want to try to figure out a way to promote more of those technologies. I've got composting and urine diversion in here, number 12. And then 13 is the pilot project. So the thought here again is take the Schubel Pond example, which I think has been super helpful, and see if the town wants to sponsor a pilot project to investigate, promote.
So, and this is where we'll disagree with you, is that the previous pilot project wasn't the town.
I'm sorry, did I say town?
Yeah, you said you recommended the town conduct a pilot project, similar to Schubel's Pond.
Yeah. Nothing wrong with that. The town conduct a pilot project similar to Schubel's Pond.
Right.
What do you say?
I think it's clarifying that the Schubel's Pond, correct me if I'm wrong, Schubel's Pond wasn't done by the town.
I don't think that says that.
No, we don't feel that's our lane. We don't do scientific study stuff.
But maybe the wording could, I'm sorry.
A pilot project, which fine, but I'm just, by saying that that's a town function, I'm not convinced we have the funding, people, or resources to do that.
So maybe the town could partner with somebody to do that?
Or just somebody could do that. I'd just say that, you know, it's ideal that the pilot project be done. I'm not convinced that that's the town's gonna be the one that's gonna do that. That's all.
I mean, the town has been paying for studies of ponds, right?
Yeah, but Z's he's done on his, you know, Z's funded that through his own good work and through his own grants and through those own things.
Yeah.
What we're doing to ponds is pond management studies because we were trying to get a better understanding of what was going on in ponds and what was happening, because we were hearing it's because of this, or it's because of this, or it's because of this, and it was all anecdotal. There was no real scientific look at that. So what those pond studies are doing is trying to figure out what are the sources to that. The pilot work in terms of getting 50 units, you know, the work that Butch was just talking about, figuring out what are the next phosphorus IA systems, what are the units that should be invested in, what are the units that shouldn't be invested in, and then investing in those units. That's not something that I would argue that's not in our lane, at least currently.
So the Long Pond recommendation was something like you could deal with the phosphorus if you took care of 28 septic systems. So that seems like a great pilot project.
That's not what I.
That could be part of the CW.
The biggest problem is it's all private property.
Yeah, that's what, yeah.
We're not gonna install septic systems on private property.
Yeah.
And manage them. That's the problem. The town might be able to provide funding.
We can sewer them.
To an organization that does this, if they choose.
Maybe you could change the word to, instead of conduct, encourage or support or.
I just was concerned because it sounded like we were gonna be able to go do that, and that's not in our wheelhouse or in our lane.
Unfortunately, I agree with you guys because I've had 8 years of experience
Yeah.
to know that that's not what you're gonna help me do.
And you'll recall, we
But-
did try to partner with you
I
at the
know,
onset, and
I'm not saying
there was a
that
lot
you
of these
guys were
hurdles.
cooperative and helpful, I'm not saying that.
Right.
I'm just saying that I agree for the purposes of what we're trying to do in a presentation to town council, I don't think we ought to be recommending it, because you can't do it. So
But do we?
I think cooperate or something, or,
Okay, I think what-
look for and whatever, but in terms of beyond that, I don't see how the town's gonna do that.
Right.
I guess.
Okay, well, should I still keep something in here that we want to see it done, maybe not by the town?
Absolutely, I'm not at all saying you should strike the paragraph, it's just
Okay.
Encouraging.
responsibility for the paragraph.
As
All right,
Jane
all
said, to
I'll back off on
saying
that.
that.
Well, I mean,
encourage and
let's just
support.
let's think for a minute though, because what I do think back, if we go back to a carrot and a stick, that we haven't included in here is the opportunity to redo some of the Board of Health regs. And we talked about doing that and the potential to do that, to look at load instead of flow as an encouragement. We talked about accessory dwelling units as something. I'm not sure that, notwithstanding the fact that I know urine diverting toilets aren't fully regulated at this point, I still believe that looking at commercial establishments,
Yep.
schools, anywhere where there's more than one urinal,
Good idea.
I mean, that by
with
definition.
respect to the
already
ladies
you're
in the
different.
room, but this is low-hanging fruit to go after, to figure out a way to get low flow or whatever, to look at regulations like that. I think that's like a perfect target to
Agreed.
go after, put in there, and then it's not a cooperative thing, it's like a regulatory thing somehow. I don't know.
It'd be better than going after 28 septic systems in a Long Pond watershed. I mean, that was the recommendation.
What's the recommendation, Tom?
So if you sewered 28 parcels, or you took if you took the nitrogen load from 28 parcels in the Long Pond watershed, that would remove the amount of nitrogen. I mean, the phosphorus, isn't it? Correct?
Yeah.
No, it's the nitrogen, it's the phosphorus load.
The
Yeah,
phosphorus.
It's the phosphorus
You
load.
said that- you said
Yeah,
that.
it was, I believe it
Well,
was
we're talking
sewer
phosphorus,
28
yeah.
parcels or IAs at some greater number than that. That is what is in the management plan, correct?
You didn't have to address every parcel that
Correct.
was contributing to the pond. It was 28 contributing parcels, and then not all of them would have to be addressed to achieve the
And see, and
phosphorus
to
goal.
me, and that might be
Mixed it all
something
up.
that the town could do. So what I would say is the town can and should further delineate the groundwater that goes into ponds and where it's coming from. You could do that, right? That's very doable. And I think it's gonna be very helpful because it's gonna help whoever the NGO is or the organization is that puts in to test phosphorus reducing septic system. That's where you're gonna go, that's where you're gonna live, right? I don't know, that's.
Yeah, because that's the stuff you had EPA do for you initially, that
That
I'm
could
guessing that no longer exists based on what's happened to EPA recently.
It what?
I'm guessing that no longer exists based on what's happened to EPA recently.
It exists, but it was wrong at Jubal by a fairly significant factor.
Fair.
Doesn't urine diversion take the phosphorus out?
Yeah, that's about 65% of the
So if you talk
phosphorus.
28 people into doing that, boy, you just get it done.
Okay, well, I will make some edits to that section.
Half of them?
As Jane, wait, say what you said again, please, Jane.
All the guys have
They
to
weren't
go through
interested.
trees.
Yeah.
And Brian presented to them, and they weren't interested, right?
So we've,
Isn't that what
they've,
happened?
they've heard Jane talk about
Right.
her system, they've heard Brian talk about urine diverting. They're not interested in those solutions.
Who's they?
Who's that?
Long Pond.
Was they what?
Those
Stakeholder
28
group?
parcels.
I think that situation's gonna change over time.
Well,
It may.
and I'm not sure if not interest is right, but social and economic barriers to using those solutions,
I
right?
think it's intimidating, it's different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just like in the 1940s, when you brought toilets inside, it was horrible. We've got outhouses in the house now, that's terrible.
All right, well, let's get back to this. I'm gonna,
Scott's like, I really wanna get through this.
We're almost there,
worked
we're
hard
almost
on
there.
this.
I'm gonna make some changes and not recommend the town conduct it, but encourage it and whatever. And I'm also gonna put the delineation of contributing areas in there and clarify that. Let's talk about the last one, number 14. This is the Cranberry Bog project, see? And the substance of this recommendation, and maybe Z, I'll let you, or ask you to say a few words here, but things are progressing. And maybe at some point, the town may want to play a bigger role in this project too. So let's talk about that as a possibility.
Yeah, I mean, you know that I'm 100% on board. Everything that we see tells you that this is a low-cost, like Rob said, we're gonna put a waste treatment plant in the middle of the river. It just happens to be called a wetland. It's as simple as that, really. I think,
And that one might have, talking about the Sentinel Station, that might be the one with the quickest,
Well, it's gonna be fast.
everything on the list.
Everything on that river is gonna be fast.
So is this a reasonable recommendation to the council?
I'm still trying to read through it, I'm not sure what you're actually asking the council to do.
Well, it says we
I mean, I
recommend.
see you're talking about the value of it, but what are you actually asking town council to do?
It says we recommend that the town partner with BCWC and provide financial assistance to value engineer the design, optimize nitrogen removal, and construct the restoration project. So I guess what I'm saying is to partner funding for both final design, construction, and probably monitoring. That's the recommendation,
So
as it
there's,
stands. We don't have any, I don't know that we have specifics yet, but
Yeah, well, I wanna be careful and recuse myself, because it's my organization that's
Well, and I-
recommending
and I-
it, okay?
and I did put a
I made it
note-
quite clear what I feel.
I
but
put a
what
note,
the-
I'm
what
working
the-
as a
what-
consultant
what
on
the-
this too,
What
so.
the committee
Be careful.
recommends, this is, whether it happens in this committee or after the committee's over, we'll see.
Well, this committee doesn't have any authority other than recommending.
Right. So, any other thoughts on that one?
I mean, like anything else, for first read, the devil will be in the details. How that happens in terms of ownership, land ownership, investing money on, that kind of stuff.
I mean, isn't it a good first step just to put it on the table as something that might be a potential, see if there's interest, the town council, they might think this is a good investment.
Yeah.
If they do, then we can come back with details. If not, if it's a no-go, then,
The question I had about this one is already a non-traditional solution in our CWP, so isn't it essentially already a recommendation?
Yeah, I don't think the concept's a problem, it's just gonna be how you get from point A to point Z. It's gonna, it'll be the details in terms of how you could actually do that, how that actually happens and stuff.
okay.
And to me, the wetlands, you guys are already in there recommending and saying it's in the CWMP, so this is not like a new thing.
Right.
Okay, I think that just, like you say, going
Next
in,
steps.
getting more details, we're further along, we understand more about it, let's now continue to pursue that path.
Okay.
Probably needs
Well,
to
why don't-
be,
What?
relative to that, I think there probably needs to be a direct proposal, like for something.
Right.
That the town or the council can wrestle with.
Vote on
And I
it,
think it's kind of like you got a preliminary design here. And you want us to take
Right.
it from there and implement it, right?
Yeah, I mean, I have that and I'm planning to do it, yes.
Yeah.
Away from this committee and be in front of town council asking for that very thing, definitely, I have all that,
So we're,
yes.
on the same page.
The answer is yes.
So to that end then,
Yeah.
do you dilute the conversation with town council by including this as part of the committee's conversation? Or do you keep the council focused on your 1,000-foot thing, the 1,000-foot IA discussion? And then Z's gonna handle this separately with us anyways. Do you know what I'm saying?
That might be.
I don't think so. To me, you mention it as part of the big package, and you can delineate it and say, to be further discussed next month, or, shortly thereafter. This is all coming pretty quickly, I can tell you right now.
I think one of the things that's probably worth having a conversation about is Scott gets up, reads these to town council. What do you hope happens? Like that very next moment?
I hope they say, this is awesome, how do we start? What can we do in the next?
Generally, from watching town council a lot, this is not at all meant to be disparaging, what they'll say is, hey, that was a great presentation, thank you very much. The next agenda item is, and would you
Yep.
please read that in?
Right.
And so that there's not, because there's not an action attached to this. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I agree.
So.
Well, I agree, and I think that we should distill this into a handful of actionable, votable, or however it's gonna be said. So I mean, the main one we've talked about is this 1,000-foot setback and what's involved in it or not involved in it, and I don't know how to do it, but my guess is that we wanna ask for that to be voted on as a recommendation somehow and going into the various groups or committees that it has to go to get it approved.
Don't you think with us just going on record, this is a concept that we think is implemented, even though there's not an action item
Helpful.
at the point in time? I like the idea of distilling a set of action items at the end, but I think these are things that we think need to be considered and implemented in the future. It kind of gets it on record.
So Griffin brought up a good point. So counselors that are here, when the other ad hocs came into you, because you've had other ad hocs come to you, was it purely just sort of an update conversation, or was it, here's the presentation, now there's something, what's the mechanism with town council from the ad hocs?
There were recommendations made, but this is gonna be a lot to digest. It would have to be simpler than this.
Simpler.
Yeah, like
Shorter.
a statement, but I also think it might be helpful to shop this by the legal department. Do you wanna recommend this as changes through the Board of Health or through the town council? Because you might have a different perspective from our legal department on what's the most effective approach.
Yeah, I mean, these aren't, what's on here isn't necessarily actionable items that evening. It's basically an update as to what you're recommending pursuing further. So I think the piece to add to this would be how or
Well, either that, or
when.
it's if I were you, I'd wanna get an endorsement from the council that, hey, this is great work. We endorse this, we direct the town manager to proceed with these recommendations.
Yes.
That's good.
Yeah.
Good workshop, right?
If you continue this group.
Another workshop.
Yeah.
Not that,
No, but we have four new councils.
Yes,
To
here,
work-
But wouldn't these
to develop,
Work on them.
to,
plans perhaps fall under,
further details on that.
yeah, for, as the group goes
Yeah.
on, if, to flesh out
Right.
those actions would be.
Yep.
Something
Yeah, that's, so
that
the
they could.
last recommendation, oh, go ahead.
Well, I just question, does the town council recommend that the various regulatory boards change their regulations? How does this go from these general concepts about, improvements that you're recommending to actually
that's what we're wrestling with right now.
It depends upon which
What's
item
that
we're talking
connection?
about. Depends upon which item we're talking about. So if it's the first item, which is a proposed regulation, that's where, yes, I agree, we would probably need legal's input as to, is it a town council regulation? Is it a board of health regulation? Is it somewhere else? And then there's a process for adopting any of those. Yeah.
So I guess the comment I would have, I'm not sure I'm on solid ground here, but if you're making these, if the sum and substance of this is this, and then we just put it out there and say, boom, that leaves a lot undone, in my opinion. And it seems to me we should have kind of a follow-up document that says, after you digest this and make some sense out of it, and it's a lot, I mean, they're not gonna act on this obviously right away, but it seems to me then the next step would be, and therefore, if you do find this, these are the things we recommend you do to make sure these things happen, whether it's the town manager or it's the town council directing, a board to revisit its regulations to take into account, some sort of, meat on the bone sort of thing. Does that make sense, or?
Yeah, and maybe number 17, the last one really is the continuation of this group. And my sense is that only one or two of these are ready for prime time, one being probably the regulation.
Yeah.
Many of the others are, hey, we just want you to be aware that these can also help us.
But they're not gonna necessarily catch that 1,000-foot thing needs action unless you ask them to act.
Right, well, that is.
That's why if we distill it down to a few things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with what you're saying,
Yeah.
and I like what Dan said in terms of an endorsement. But just like we were trying to say, let's characterize the 2,000 parcels that we're talking about in terms of load and flow of cost. Maybe we also take that in terms of, and we haven't done this, to the legal department and wherever else and understand what's it mean to do that? Which three departments have to have skin in this game? How would you do it? How would that happen? I don't know how, I don't know. Is it zoning? Is it Board of Health? Is it just, what are the actual things that would need to change? We at least have to be able to list what those things are and say an endorsement would include potential action, from these other entities within the town or something.
We're gonna be ready for that by January.
Yeah, we need to at least.
So I kind of like what Butch is saying. I mean, I think a lot of this stuff is good, and there's just several action items that we're asking for. It's like, I think the last one is the big one. We want to continue, be a standing committee, because there's so much going on. Barely scratch the surface here. And then the other one is the regulation. And all these other ones, I think they really demonstrate broad application, understanding of the water resource issues that the CWMP is trying to address. So, I mean, I don't know, that's my thought, is that I think a lot of this, a lot of it is good, and I think it can be, at the end, say, town council, so here's our, at the end, we're asking for, we want to continue, be a standing committee and continue to work with the town on this regulation to, advance IA systems to expedite nitrogen removal where it's not going to happen for a while. I mean, we will articulate that different and more formally as we go forward, but just the gist of that, I think, is okay.
So I'm hearing a few different things here. I guess what I'm trying to.
Scott's like,
committee. I mean, my sense is, and again, pride of authorship here, I think some sort of a document summarizing our discussions, things we think are helpful, to me, is still helpful going to the council.
Right.
But I think I'm also hearing where we can do it, calling out specific actions. And my guess is only a couple, three of them. One is the reg, continuing the committee. There might be another one, I'm not sure, I'll look
Yeah,
again.
that's
The rest
what
of them are all
narrative.
recommendations for further discussion, which is the last recommendation, continue the committee. So we still have a report covering most of these items. Unless people feel that something here shouldn't be something we do for council. I can try to make it simpler, but I don't wanna go too simple either. I mean, this 10 pages?
Yeah.
10 pages.
And
Is that too much?
I think it ought to be a page or two.
Oh, really? The whole thing?
With support documents
Yeah.
behind
I mean,
it.
we can
you
have
know?
Cover
documentation
page, a
behind
cover
it.
summary,
Yeah,
and
But I
then
just
the
think with the
rest of it.
summary doc,
written out.
I
Nobody
can
reads
get you a
anything these
copy
days, I
of
can
what
tell you right
the
now.
zoning subcommittee submitted, and it was like kind of 3 meaty recommendations. But you can support it with your other discussion of our report.
And well, the zoning committee made like 6 or 7 recommendations, I think, and then the town council president took 4 of them and brought them.
Advanced them.
Sent them to town council, who sent them to planning board, which is where they are now. But there's still others that may percolate up. I think this has to go through the Board of Health. I think we need to talk to Tom McKeon and see, we need to educate them to help themselves on it, sure that they understand it. Just looking at it.
So,
I think you want to engage the council to get their endorsement or buy-in. Once you start going to the Board of Health and legal, it's gonna go like this.
Right.
It's gonna be very difficult to bring that back together. I think if you work through the council, then go out to them, then they get direction from the highest, the
Legislative.
Well, if we ask for an endorsement, then we also understand, because we've done the homework to talk to legal to understand what does that mean. So then we ask for an endorsement and we recommend that you now go to the zoning or Board of Health or wherever to examine the possibility and how to move forward on.
Yeah, as far as the regulation, the proposed regulation goes, I don't know that you necessarily need to get that deep into that when you're
Town council.
when you're making a recommendation to the council. I mean, you're basically saying, this committee recommends that the town promulgates regulations that does this. And then staff would work on how that's done and bring it to the council and say, and then the council would eventually vote on a measure that would do that. Or the Board of Health would, if that's the route that it's decided to go. So I don't think you need to get into that level of detail.
So as an example, that's what you just did with the 0%, right?
With what,
The 0% SRF stuff.
the flow neutral stuff?
Yeah, because you came and said, the council came and said, we wanna do flow neutral, it got delegated to the town manager to staff. They staffed it, they brought back to you a votable, actionable
Yeah.
item. So I mean, just using that as an analog
Right, yeah.
to how this might work.
No, I agree, the endorsement needs to be there before you go to legal.
Oh, the concept endorsement.
Yeah, they're basically endorsing the concept of, we would like
All the change.
staff to bring forward a proposal that does
I mean,
this.
it's kind of strategic planning in some sense. It's like, we wanna go that way.
Yeah.
Town manager, figure out what it takes for us to go that way. That kind of thing.
Maybe we don't need to go all the way and put that in the documentation, but I think it would be worthwhile for the committee to understand what's involved. To the extent we can. And maybe that means another conversation with legal, I don't know.
I think it would also be helpful if this grant that Scott referred to, that looks like this pilot program that might offer cheaper, free,
The Mass Tech?
Mass Tech stuff.
Yeah.
Check on the timing of that or the capacity, because that will, price makes a difference. It's gonna help sell the project.
All right, so I guess I'm still a little, I don't want to use the word confused, but confused as to whether the consensus committee is, I should really reduce this down to a 1 or 2 page thing, or whether I should edit this with identifying specific actions.
I don't think it's necessarily pages. I think what he's saying is to keep it short, but to keep it like 3 recommendations, is that what I'm getting?
3 to 5, no more, would be my call. I think beyond that, people
Or
can't focus
action
on it.
points, or people are calling it different, but in the presentation to the council to give them 3 solid meaty things, and then however it goes from there.
Okay.
I think your thing's fine, I would edit it, have that as backup.
Have it as backup,
And then
yeah.
from that, you've got a one-pager which lists like a sentence and an action item. And then ultimately you want the council to endorse that series of action items, which will say various things. Directing.
I like that. That's.
Yeah.
that'd be
Yeah, I mean, these
easier.
are ultimately like the committee's findings, right?
It's just like the old Encyclopedia Britannica.
These are ultimately kind of the committee's findings, and then from there you would pluck out your 3 to 5 recommendations.
Okay, so kind of keep this with edits and then add
Absolutely.
a simple actions, recommended actions. Therefore, here's the action.
Yep.
Okay, that's, I
whatever-
like that, I can definitely do that.
And then whatever they do with it, whether it's shipped off to different departments for review,
Yep.
handed it off.
Okay.
What will be.
I'll see the town council president on Wednesday. Can I show him this?
Your baby, you're losing control of your baby.
I'm just saying,
I don't know, I defer to others on how the town works better on that
well, he might
one.
have a recommendation or perspective, or, hey, this is coming your way. How do you wanna, you've got the
I don't
steering
have a
wheel.
problem with that, I hate to see this distributed widely.
I wouldn't.
It's not been edited, there's typos in here.
I see draft, and it's one, the council president.
What are you thinking, Griffin?
It's being recorded right now, so.
Well, we're doing a lot of editing, I think you ought to get the edited.
We could redact your name.
Chris, let me at least do some edits, all right, some typos, I get, all right. You sent me some typos.
I know.
So what?
Right.
Get
I think
those.
you ought to edit it.
All right, okay, great. Let me see where we're on the agenda, we're doing really well here. Public, yes.
Can I ask Dan,
No.
but to get an endorsement from town council,
But,
there needs to be some kind of
I
vote,
haven't even
really.
looked into it yet.
I don't think
that would be the vote.
I will.
Yeah, town
Just to
council.
His action
continue,
plan.
yeah, to move it forward.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right, that's
To
it.
endorse it, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of what we're looking
We're
for
asking for,
ideally,
yeah,
right?
we're asking to
okay.
move this forward.
Sort of like, what do they call it,
Policy
sense of the
document.
council, or whatever that is, the sense of the council,
Sense of the council,
something like that.
we don't really do straw polls or anything.
First reading.
Consensus.
Consensus.
Ordinance, a resolution.
All right,
Well,
public
and
comments.
it's all gonna come down to your power of persuasion.
Yeah,
What's that?
It's all gonna come down to your power of persuasion, how effective you are as a communicator.
I'll do my best. Slideshow appropriate? Yeah, okay, I'll do that. We're at public comment, we only have one public person here, Jane, you already, anything else?
Well, I think what you've done is phenomenal. I've been, dropping in and either here or on Zoom periodically. And I think this is an incredible amount of good work. And I actually have a question. I thought that one of the impetuses for this group being assembled was that there's some kind of feedback that then goes to DEP, that the CWMP is being updated or has been reviewed. Is that,
So there-
where does that happen in what you're talking about now?
So we're writing what we did for the past 5 years report, for lack of a better term.
I see.
The aspect of that we can't speak to is what this committee's working on,
I
which
see.
is what are we doing with innovative technologies and where are we going with innovative technologies in the town?
So they go together and then get submitted to.
Right, so but what we've done, so we have the, as Tom talked about earlier, you have those 5 one-year updates. Effectively, those get wrapped into now a 5-year update. There's an update from Mark Milne on the financial plan has changed or hasn't changed. There's an update from planning on build out has changed or hasn't changed. Those sorts of things. And Kelly and Chris are assembling that now, all that stuff. What we're waiting from this committee on was basically this to say, and the town is recommending, or the committee's recommending that we do this regarding IAs in this next 5-year
Sure,
bond.
good.
Is the timing messing you up if we don't?
I think, the other thing that I would like to comment on is your statement that you thought an RME was at least a very good idea. And I would have to say, as a homeowner, that we became our own contractor, we became our own RME. And if we hadn't been as motivated as we were, the process was intimidating. We liked the concept, we wanted to get a new system that could maybe help us prevent, improve the groundwater. But the process was very intimidating, and we're not particularly easily intimidated. I mean, we had to figure out, and nobody.
You were a unique client too.
Well, if it had, God bless Mark Nelson and Horsley Witten, because we had contracted with them to help us replant our yard where we'd removed invasives. And Mark just happened to hear about this system being available. And so we said, sure, that's a great idea. And it's available under an EPA grant, great. But then it was kind of like, tag, you're it. And we'd never done anything like this before. So we hired our own installer, and fortunately we knew somebody who was in the neighborhood, but all he did was install the tank. Nobody knew about hiring the electrician that would then make it actually a functional IA system. And I think if there'd been an RME oversight, it would have been incredible in terms of the process. My husband said, now don't say anything negative about this. And I'm not saying it was negative, but it was a huge challenge. And I think if we hadn't been very motivated homeowners, and once it's in, it's not foolproof. The power goes off and the alarm system doesn't let you know the power's off. So you have to pay attention. So these don't run themselves once they're in the ground. So I think having an RME either with the hand holding and the helping you find the contractors and potentially the bulk, the group purchase is a hugely good idea to have as a recommendation. Not that it has to be run by any particular group, but to have that support.
Yeah. All right, thank you, Jane. And again, just a reminder, I just got this. I haven't even read this detail, the proposal from Mass Tech. So it's from them to the town. I'm the messenger. So take a look at it, and I guess we could talk at the next meeting. If we want to schedule them to come through this group, we could do that. Or if we just want to do it separate, whatever you guys want to do, it's fine. But I just want to make you aware of it. I do have one other item that's come up from a few different people. I just want to, and this could go back to the report. I'll just paraphrase this, that I think as I started writing the report, I think we want to be very complimentary to what the plan says, because I certainly believe that, and I think everybody here does, but this concept of the fact that it really treats about half the town in terms of whether it's sewer or IA or whatever. There's another half of the town that really isn't part of the plan geographically. I think I understand some of the reasons why that is, but I think it's a communication issue. So whether or not we want to put something in the plan, in the report about that, I just wanted to open up and see if people have any thoughts on that. About 47% of the households in the town are not part of the plan. So.
My personal view is what you should say is that we hope the town will skate to where the puck is going to be, which is only half the town, even after all this, ever gets wastewater treatment. But our hope is that the entire town someday gets wastewater treatment at a higher level than what we're talking about with a Title V system or a cesspool. And we ought to think about how to do that. But for today, we're talking about the CWMP.
Right.
And the estuary protection is being mandated by Mass DEP. That's where we're going today. And then I think we go into, let's address that. That's how I would think about it.
Okay.
We need to address lakes and ponds, let's talk about that within the 47.
We got a little bit of that in there.
Within whatever it is, the 53% that aren't getting anything, that needs to be addressed. But in my view, that's not, I don't believe that's what the mandate is, or that's what the conversation is for this particular.
I have a couple of comments on that. I agree completely why we're here and why the plan sets it is. I have a problem calling it a comprehensive waste plan because it's not comprehensive. And I just think we should acknowledge that it's not a comprehensive plan. I think by doing that up front, when it comes time to get extra money to fund the rest of it, I think you just need to be honest right up front. This is not a comprehensive waste plan. This is the plan that the state has required us to do, and we're meeting that.
So let me give you my thoughts on this. I agree with the comment, but there's two different uses of the term comprehensive waste plan here, because the state has an official definition of that. And this plan does address that, okay? But I think the comment about future skating to where the puck's gonna be is a good one, because it's gonna be. Yeah, no, I think the point, what I'm hearing is there are other issues beyond what this plan currently is directed to address that we don't wanna forget. But I also think we gotta be careful, at least for me, I would not wanna critique the plan that's out there as not being comprehensive with the capital C, because I think it is, it's been approved by the state, so I think we just gotta be careful. I'm comfortable, but other people have thoughts, Rob?
Well, you know, to me, it's not part of our mission at the moment, and, I mean, this is an enormous, what you're bringing up is an enormous, much larger topic, and it's not pressing at the moment. I mean, right now, we gotta deal with what we got, which is the area that we're dealing with, and,
The larger topic being the whole town, you mean?
yeah, bringing that up now, I don't see the purpose of it. I guess, I'm not sure why. To what end? Are we asking for more, a larger, broader mission? Are we, at this point in time, it doesn't make sense to me, really. We've got a pretty big bit of business on the table right now.
Well, see, I don't agree with you, and I
Yeah.
don't, well, not that I like
It's
you,
all
but
right.
the reason I don't agree with that is because we're gonna be in a public forum talking to a lot of voters who are gonna believe that they don't get anything with this plan, which I agree is called comprehensive, even though it's not. But, you know, and to me, that's kind of an elephant in the room that we've gotta figure out how to address. There's a lot of people on the north side that are gonna be asked to pay a lot of money for some version of this, and they're not getting wastewater treatment.
Right.
And so, to me, that's why it should be brought up.
Seems to me they'll be happy that they're not getting it.
What's that?
Seems to me they'll be happy they're not getting it. And the other thing is that, all Barnstable Village, the hub in the north side is sewer. And they're getting great benefit out of that.
I know that.
Yeah, of course you do, but, it's a town responsibility. And so the town, everybody is part of the town, and we're taking care of the town's resources. Luckily, I don't know, we don't need to do it on the north side, because we don't have, that's the way the science works. But, what are we asking those folks on the north side to pay for the restoration on the south side? How are they paying? Are they paying anything?
What are we asking?
Through taxes.
About $2 billion. We're
Yeah.
asking,
I mean, their property tax,
plus or minus.
so property tax is going up to help support the
So 50%,
CWOP.
so what Mark Milne has always said is about 50% of the plan's already been accounted for by other things coming in, which are general town resources.
Yeah.
So, was it the rooms and meals tax and things of that
Short-term
nature, which
rentals, et cetera.
you could argue then, if they weren't being doing this, they'd be available to do something. I mean, you could do it that way, but I don't believe that there's a tax that's gone out to Mrs. McGillicuddy, who I don't think it really exists, I'm using a fictitious name, that lives on the north side to pay something, but there's also opportunity costs, that there's money that's going into the plan that everybody bears that opportunity cost to some extent. You know where I'm going with that?
Yeah, at some point, we may need to have a debt exclusion to move forward, and
What's
then
that?
that's where the conversation will
Right,
happen.
and that's,
Yeah, I know.
that's exactly the conversation.
All right, well, thank you for that. We'll discuss, I'll do what I can with it.
Move to
I
adjourn.
guess I have one other question. When
I like that one. Move the question. Where's
Councilmember question? When I present
The
this,
vice president says.
go ahead, Chris, Gordon, when I present this to the town council, if others are there, will there be room for other comments?
I think it's good optics to have committee members there,
Okay.
sitting together in visual support, even if they don't speak.
Okay, so the reason I'm saying this, I'm gonna do my best to integrate what I'm hearing here, okay? I'm gonna try not to make this all about me, but what I'm hearing, okay? But clearly, other people in the room here have other things they wanna say in addition, so maybe there'll be an opportunity for that, if that's fair enough to, okay, good.
And that's why I think it would be helpful to share this
In
draft with
advance.
the council president so that he's
Yeah.
aware that
What's
this is a
coming.
big,
Okay,
this is a big deal.
yep, let me, I'll get
And
through
the
the edits
And
and we'll do
the
that.
CLF lawsuits, we're gonna be sitting in on another executive session on that, so.
Thank you. Any other items not anticipated by the chair?
And
Motion to adjourn.
Second.